Alrighty then. Why'd I get the thumbs down? My daughter just sent me a thumbs down on text.
Wow.
What'd I do? It's fine. I'll take away that phone and the TV and the Xbox. See, I'll get the last laugh. Just take the controllers. Turn the internet off. We can just go on generator because that only does like a third of the house. Yeah. It does the boiler, the fridge, the lights in the kitchen, the lights in my bedroom, and the sump pump.
No lights in the bathroom?
Nah, you got a flashlight. I only have so many circuits. All right, so how's everybody doing this week? All right, here's a fun little exercise in Christianity. What's God been doing in your life? How has God spoken to you this week? You want me to go first, just kind of give you an example?
Sure.
Cool bow tie.
Right?
Is that a real bow tie? Is that an actual tie bow tie?
Oh, don't put him on the spot.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Jalen and I got...
Yeah, that's the important question.
My daughter and I got in an argument the other day because she didn't believe that I had an actual tie-up bow tie. And I have worn it, so that's not true. And so I pulled it off my tie rack. Sure enough, a beautiful blue and red bow tie. So I was going to say paisley, but it's not paisley. What's the Scottish pattern? Plaid.
Oh.
It's blue and red and white plaid bow tie.
What are you all saying? Tartan?
Tartan?
Every clan has a.
Everybody knows that word, Michael.
I don't.
Obviously.
Well, I do now, so you can't hold it against me.
Tartan, is that like Master Chief? Is he a tartan?
No, it's like a curtain made of tartan.
Okay. So this week, I was talking to a friend. I know we're segueing into something spiritual.
Okay.
And so I was talking to a friend, and I was asking some counsel about something, and he said, this is going to sound weird. He said, but I got a quote off a television show that I thought would be a really great help to you concerning what I was asking him for counsel, and he gave me it. And it was as if the Lord's saying, there you go, dummy. Are we listening for God? We'll get more into that. I want to get through Ecclesiastes and kind of seeing where God is going to lead us after this. We still got at least 4 more weeks. We have 4 more chapters after today, but we'll see. Morning, Uncle Tim, Aunt Donna. And they're not officially my aunt and uncle. I just adopted them so they don't have a choice. It's what I do. But are you actively listening for the voice and looking for the hand of God in your life?
Good.
And it's something. There's some things that Mike and I have been working on and trying to develop that sensitivity in life where we're just looking for God in our lives. Does anybody have any testimonies of God working in your life this week? Gave you a verse. Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
Gave you a verse, a testimony. You heard the lyrics of a song, and that was the Holy Spirit said, you need this. What or where, how in your life this week have you seen the Lord? Michael?
No, I want to go.
Too late.
At Bradley, we're very, very tiny version of it is, as you know, we have a bunch of people in California right now, and we haven't gotten a requisition order for more. I kind of wanted more, but the ones who are there, a number of them are going out on sea trials, which means that they're top performance. That's really good for Bradley Electric. It's really good for the guys. but it's also good for the bottom line at Barnsley Electric. And it just makes me think of that verse. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. And I don't think that means that God always has to come down and directly change people, but like it's just a natural way that he gave us to live. When we live according to his principles, these things, with exception, we understand it, but these things do happen. Like when we operate according to the Proverbs principles and we give and we sacrifice and we treat people well, we retain good people. And it's just ultimately a way of saying that God's economy is coming through time and time and time again. And it has been and continues to. And I just think of God's goodness, even when things are poor, but on the whole, saying, God, thank you for revealing to us the way to succeed. He wants us to prosper, not a prosperity gospel, but he wants us to do well. And anyways, it just kind of goes in line with Ecclesiastes, just thinking about putting God first, honoring his commandments, and then enjoying his blessings.
It's good. Anyone else? Jabin.
Habakkuk 2:14. For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea.
That's good.
Amen.
It's good. Someone else. So that's your homework this week. Kim.
This has been working in me for a while, and I found that when things get a little chaotic, you have to keep looking unto Jesus. And I've got this picture in my mind of, remember when the Fellowship of the Ring was in the mines of Moria, and they had to cross that bridge
Yes.
to get out, and it's like Jesus is standing on the other side. Look at me. Don't look down. There's a Balrog down there. Don't look down. Just look at me and run, and that's.
So who gets to be Gandalf? I want to be Gandalf.
Dude, Kev, that's literally my illustration in the sermon today, is that very bridge in the mines of Moria from the Lord of the Rings. Behind you is a prop that I was going to use as Gandalf's staff this morning. That's literally my illustration for the sermon.
Why didn't you call? We have a couple really cool staffs you
I
could
felt
use.
like I should have called, and I was like, I don't want to bother.
Dude, it's a martial arts house. We have those things.
I definitely should have called.
We have weaponry to kill people.
Yeah.
Um,
I just thought it was really cool that she mentioned that. I'm like, that's my sermon today. I'm not preaching Lord of the Rings, but.
you could. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. I was reading Proverbs 27. It's got so many good verses in it, but this really goes along with what we've been teaching. Hell and destruction are never full. So the eyes of man are never satisfied.
Never satisfied. It's good. And Donna?
This doesn't really have a verse associated with it, but I went on the Bible app, your Bible, whatever it is, and a prayer popped up. It says, remind you to pray. And so I was going through it, and a prayer popped up, and I was reading the prayer to myself, and I was going, oh my word, I need this prayer so much today. This is perfect. How do they know? And then I saw Tim's name in it, and I went, oh, this is one I wrote. This is one of mine that I'm being reminded of to pray again.
That's cool.
And I thought, oh, thank you, God. It was the perfect prayer I needed.
That's awesome.
That is cool. Saw another hand.
Oh,
Sure.
I've been reading some books about the Underground Railroad because Harriet Tubman's been my childhood, since childhood, she's been my hero. And I was thinking this week about how she had so much faith in God, and she talked to God all the time. And I was so excited when I was doing Arnold's genealogy, because it's kind of difficult. And I found out that his family on the Young side came from the same county that Harriet Tubman came from.
Awesome.
And I was like so excited. And one of the coolest things is that he has an ancestor, Sarah Young, that was born in the 1700s. She was a slave. Her two children were the master's children. And when he died, he freed her and he gave her money. And she used that money. She was a former slave, and she used that money to build a black school and a black church in this town. And someday we want to go down to Maryland and find the town and
That'd be
the
cool.
church and the school are still there. And it just reminds me that people that had nothing would give
Yeah.
everything to help other people. And I think I don't know, that's something that's been kind of guiding me this week, to remember to give. And I keep thinking about Harriet talking to God all the time. So it's really kind of,
That is really cool. Boy, these are awesome. You guys are cooler than cucumbers.
Oh, one more.
Yes, Kim.
Morgan got some good news and some bad news last week. She got the date for her hip replacement,
Nice.
but it's June 26th or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that's hope. I know when we were praying and hoping that Mike could get both her knees done at the same time, and that didn't work out. And then by the time she had her first one done, they're like, yeah, we're scheduling for August. And we're like, you've got to be kidding me. Or late June, July, somewhere in then. We have to wait all this time, but it was actually perfect because her new knee was able to strengthen enough to support her for when she got the second one done. And so, no, that's good. That's good news.
Morgan's out of work and everything.
Yeah, she's been suffering from that for a long time.
2 kids.
Right. But there's hope. Look to hope. That's good. That's awesome. Anybody else? Yes, sir. The new guy. He goes by the new guy. He's not offended.
Yeah, yeah.
That's me.
I
Sorry.
was about to say, I bear that title.
Don't think so. Go ahead.
So I gotta have a fight.
I'm thinking a lot about the parable of the wineskins.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple of areas in my life that, I'm looking maybe for like that new wine to come in and sort of expand, in spiritual and other personal areas of my life, just something new, which is probably why I'm here today, trying a new church.
Glad you're here.
Amen.
Glad you're here.
Amen.
Someone else.
can Arnold be the dapper guy?
The dapper.
I know he's kind of.
With that tie and that suit, yes.
He and Ray are gonna fight in the parking lot.
It's official. Arnold, be careful. Ray does not fight fairly. Sorry.
I love it.
That's awesome.
That's a testament to freedom, right? It's,
Yeah.
Some people enjoy wearing the suits. Some people, wear hoodies and jeans, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Some people wear skateboard shoes to preach in.
I'm wearing boat shoes today and socks that don't match. I just discovered. So forget I mentioned that.
You realize that we're not going to get anything in the sermon now. You're going to need to stay behind the pulpit because we're all going to be going. Every time you step over, we'll be going.
Oh yeah, they match each other. Yeah, Amber wanted me to save a little bit of my dignity. They do match each other. They just don't match my shoes.
Oh.
Oh, I'm so glad. I want to thank Amber for salvaging what little remains.
Completely ruined the morning service for us all now. We thought we were going to have some fun. Ecclesiastes chapter 8. Let's go ahead and get into it. And I think we need to learn to cultivate listening for and looking for God in our lives. I think it's false to think that God is a marionette in control of every little single exact, how many times you breathe, exactly where you put your foot down. I don't think that's scriptural, but I do know God is present and active in our lives continually. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And I think in our culture, we become so busy at doing and being and trying on our own and working on our own and just doing it for ourselves that I think many times we have looked past and looked away and gotten away from and became and have become, what's the thought? It's like the frog in the water, climatized or used to just existing without the Lord being active in our lives and not really looking for him. I think we've become, yeah. and where, we believe in the Lord, we know the Bible's true, we read it sometimes, but we just don't really openly and actively look for God active in our lives. And I think our rich society has brought us to that. I think our wealth and our prosperity and then electronics and things like that, I think we've just become numb to the fact of looking for, needing, and seeking for God's presence in our life like we should. Maybe we should pause and reverse the clock, of spiritual clock, back to American Christianity of maybe, early years, maybe even into the 70s, 60s, and 70s when that was really, really being pushed. But just a thought. And we're talking about this more as Mike and I grow in our walk, and we'll share, and hopefully you'll get on the train and go with us. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter number 8. Ecclesiastes chapter number 8. We're talking about vapor of vapors. We're trying to figure out what this preacher, what the author of the book of Ecclesiastes is trying to tell us. And so this week for review, let's go over a little bit of review. I got a little tickle in my throat. It's okay. Josh made me tea with honey in it. And so then when I get home, I'm going to have some slippery elm tea, which is really good for your throat. Slippery elm tea, in case you get a little tickle in your throat and need it to be slippery instead of tickly. Review. 7 things. As we've been going through, we've kind of narrowed it down where we're going, trying to go through an entire chapter every week, but we've spent a couple weeks in the first weeks that we've been in this. We learned the term havel, however you want to pronounce it. I never pronounce it rightly, so it's okay. Basically just means vapor, mist, smoke. Is something that we cannot hold on to. And so we learned about this vanity that the King James English refers this to, this vanity, this emptiness, this smoke, this unattainable thing. And then we learned that trying to hold on to those vapors, trying to hold on to that unfulfilled, that unattainable thing, leads to an empty, unfulfilled desire or longing in our life. Then we moved on to learn about the importance of time, how it's important to enjoy the season of the event, not just the end of the event of having been able to live it, but enjoying the season of it. We learned examples of vapor and longing. We had some examples that show us that we cannot stay solely focused on the vapors and longings of life. Talk about tyranny, oppression, a workaholic, an underachiever, a bitter person, a lonely person, and of course, an old and foolish king. That there's just these examples that there's just some things in life you just can't hold on to. We learned that we are not to focus solely on the destination, but we are to enjoy the journey. We learned that there will always be insecurity and bountifulness. I mean, a rich guy, what is he always trying to do? Protect his wealth. We learned that there will always be an insatiable longings and desires of life. What Kim said, the eyes of man are never satisfied. We can never fulfill those longings and needs of life. And of course, there's things of life that you just can't get through, which we're going to see as we get into this chapter. We learned that there will always be Sorry, I just about read the same one again. That was weird. We learned that having the wisdom of God helps us see. Remember the old Clint Eastwood, good, bad, and ugly? That's what wisdom does. It opens our eyesight as we're attaining wisdom of God and attain the wisdom of life, that you see the good things of life, you see the bad things of life, and you sincerely see the ugly things of life. And they are everywhere. They're everywhere. So now we come to chapter number 8. And we've kind of transformed the first few chapters, the first 4, 5, 6 chapters. We see this almost like a building upon a principle of understanding about this vanity and vexation of spirit. The last couple of weeks, as we've gone through the last couple of chapters, we've seen this preacher, this teacher, kind of take a different direction, a different view. And as we go through the last couple of weeks and into this week and then the last few weeks, we find this preacher giving conclusions about life, about death, about wisdom. Why? Because he's trying to help us navigate these waters of the vanity and vexations of life that he focused on those first few 4 or 5 chapters. And we'll see that as we go through these scatterings of wisdom, and you'll see that even in this short chapter of 17 verses, there's 4 major sections broken up in this short little chapter of just shotgun blastings of wisdom, trying to help us understand and navigate this thing of vanity and vexation of spirit. So I'm going to try and keep this. This was a hard one to keep in one theme. Because there's so many different directions that he's trying to go. But when you look at the last section and we put it all together, it does make sense that it kind of comes down to a theme. Right. So let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter number 8. Oh, that we're done. Who is a wise man? I don't know why I got to do this. Put on these stupid little pictures. It's a picture of Yoda, Kim. It's what I do. It's like my podcast. I'm always referring to martial arts in my podcast. Here, I like putting up pictures of just really dumb things, cultural references to help us kind of understand. But who is a wise man? Verse number 1 says, who is a wise man? Who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. I counsel thee to keep the king's commandment, and that in regard of the oath of God. Be not hasty to go out of his sight. Stand not in an evil thing, for he doeth whatsoever he pleaseth him. Where the word of a king is, there's power. And who may say unto him, what doest thou? Whoso keepeth the commandment shall feel no evil thing. And a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment, because to every purpose there is time and judgment. Therefore the misery of a man is great upon him. For he knoweth not that which shall be. For who can tell him when it shall be? There's no man that hath power of the spirit to retain the spirit. Neither hath he power in the day of death. And there is no discharge in that war, this battle looking for death, fighting death. Neither shall wickedness deliver those that are given to it. All this have I seen, applied my heart unto every work that is done under the sun. There's a time wherein one man ruleth over another to his own hurt. So I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of the holy, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This also is vanity, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. Therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked. Neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feareth not before God. There's a vanity which is done upon the earth, that there be just men unto whom it happeneth according to the work of the wicked. Again, there be wicked men to whom it happeneth according to the work of the righteous. I said that this also is vanity. Then I committed mirth, because a man hath no better thing under the sun than eat and drink and be merry. We hear him say that a lot in these chapters. For that shall abide with him of his labor the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. When I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done upon the earth, for there is that neither day nor night seeth sleep with his eyes, then I beheld all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun, because though a man labor to seek it out, yet he shall not find it. Yea, further, though a wise man think to know it, yet shall he not be able to find it. What a very interesting hodgepodge, different direction, almost confusing. And you have no idea. You thought I read chapter 7 like 12 or 14 times to try and understand what this guy's trying to say. Let's just say I probably read chapter 8 twice as much. It's just amazing when we look at, and I think that's what's very good about what we're doing on Sunday afternoons, as we're trying to understand the Old Testament and how this poetry works and these wisdom books work. But we have to understand, we have to look back and try and understand it from a king from 3,000, 4,000 years ago. We have to try and process that. I don't know how many exact years. How many exact years would that be? 3.5? 3.5? Yeah, it's about 3.5 to Solomon's age. I don't know. I'm trying to do math in my head when I'm not supposed to be doing that. I wasn't there either. But as we go into chapter number 8 and we try to figure out what is this guy talking about now? You see, we've learned so many different things. Then he started going different directions, and we're trying to figure out, okay, yes, there's things that we can't hold on to. And when we try to hold on to it, it leads to this longing of spirit. And then we're trying to figure out how to enjoy this journey and stay focused on the journey and understand that there's these things through life, and we're just going to have to deal with it. But we're supposed to be enjoying this thing of life that God has given us, as we seek his wisdom so we can truly see what we're supposed to see as we're walking the paths of life that God has for us. So the thought-provoking questions as he starts out this paragraph: who is a wise man? And who knoweth the interpretation of a thing? When you stop and truly understand who really is wise. I had the picture of Yoda, because, I'm weird, and that's just me. I'm watching through Mandalorian again because, third season's coming out in just a couple of weeks. Don't ask me why I'm that much of a nerd, but we look at people and icons, and of course we look to Solomon for wisdom. But then we get confused because, Solomon's supposed to be, the wisest king, but then he had 1,000 wives, and that just doesn't seem very wise to me. And he overtaxes people to try and buy makeup for his 1,000 wives, and it just doesn't make sense. How could that be wise? And here we have the preacher, this teacher, this author of this scroll, and we look to him and we think that he's wise, but then we look at his life and his testimony from the first couple, 3 chapters, and like, is this guy really wise? He sought out all this wisdom, but then he did some really dumb things. I'm just trying to figure out who really is wise, and he asked the same question. And after he asks the question, then he makes a statement that wisdom truly changes a man. He said, a man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. There's just something about, I couldn't think of the movie reference. Prison changes a man. I don't know. I couldn't remember that. I couldn't remember the movie reference or TV reference. I can't remember what it was. I think it was something from the 80s. But wisdom changes you. It makes you different. And so when we're trying to understand this next nugget of truth that he's trying to give us, he's going to give us 4 more truths like we learned last week. That's going to help us navigate this thing called vanity and vexation of spirit. How do we navigate these things of life that can be so empty and so unfulfilling? And how do we navigate through life and really be what God wants us and needs us to be? How can we really go to what it says in, where is it? Verse number 15. There's no better thing under the sun to eat and drink and be merry, for that shall abide with him for his labors of all the days of his life, which God giveth him under the sun. How can we get to that point like we learned in chapter number 6? How do we learn that it's about enjoying this journey? The good parts, the bad parts, the destination of salvation and redemption and restoration. How do we enjoy this journey? Because if we were to poll the room, we could probably figure out that there are some hard things that life brings us. And how do we enjoy this journey? So this chapter is going to give us 4 truths to help us navigate this vaporous life, this life of vanity. Yesterday, over Thanksgiving and Christmas, we got 2 one was a painting drawing. My sister-in-law, she did a watercolor with ink pen. And I don't know if you've been around us. Mike and I's favorite place is Pimlico Lighthouse. And through the last few really hard times that we've been through, we go to Pimlico and there's a bench. The lighthouse is here and the house is right here. And there's a bench right there that kind of overlooks the rocks that kind of face to the north. I guess that'd be north. That'd be almost north. And so many times that we've gone and sat at that bench and we've prayed and we've asked God for his help. The last really good time we had with Christopher, I have a picture of me sitting there with Josh on one arm and Chris in the other, and that's what we call our bench. And my sister-in-law gave us she's an artist, and she painted that view of the bench and the lighthouse and the rocks, and so we got that framed. And then Tierra, there's a artist, she got this little printing of an artist that had this double rainbow, I think is down in Portland on the beach. And no, it was Land's End. And so she got an imprint of that painting, and so we framed those. And then we had another painting that a friend of ours gave us of Chris, of the last one of Chris's senior pictures, and we wanted to get that into the living room. This is a really long story for something that should not have been this long, and so we were looking around the house, and we don't have a lot of wall space in our house. We just don't have a big house. And so we were looking about where we could. So we put those two little paintings on the wall in our bedroom. And then we were looking for where we're going to put that big painting of Bub. And so we're literally just walking around the house going, we don't know, because we just don't need to be overwhelmed with stuff that we don't need. And so we're trying to choose which gift or decoration or painting to take down to put this one up, because we don't want to put too many things up, because then you get cluttered and it's just overwhelming. And all that to say is we're trying to just navigate this. We just don't need to hold on to something that you just don't need to hold on to. And so we had to choose about taking away something so we could put the painting of Christopher. I don't know why it took so long to tell that story, but that's just what I do.
Okay.
But we find in this chapter number 8, and I'm going to have to fly through it because of time. I have 10 minutes to go through these 4 things, so I'm not going to be able to give you every, we're not going to be able to read every verse, but he breaks down this chapter into 4 major sections. 4 major truths about wisdom to help us navigate the vapors of life. First, through verses 2 through 4, he really focuses on this thing of obedience toward the king. There's something about, as you're trying to navigate through these things of life and these hardships and easy times and great times and good times, you're trying to enjoy this pathway that God has for you. Well, an addict is standing here with a coffee cup trying to preach. There's something important about obeying the king. He said, I counsel you to keep the king's commandment. Don't go out of his sight. Be near him. Don't stand in the evil thing. Because he's going to do whatever he wants. He has the power and the authority. So there's something about navigating with wisdom through this thing of life that obedience toward the king is good. Second thing he tells us in verses 5 through 9, he tells us that we're to focus toward wisdom. So we're supposed to obey, excuse me, we're supposed to obey the king, and then we're supposed to focus toward wisdom. Verses 5 through 9, I'm just going to have to run through these really quickly because I've jabbed too much. And he explains this in verses 5 through 9. Obedience brings safety. Wisdom brings discernment, but discernment brings misery. And you're like, what does that mean? Why does discernment, where you start to understand and discern things? As he's gaining wisdom, the preacher says, okay, you need to obey. Why? Because that brings safety in life. And as you're applying wisdom, you're going to start seeing why that's important. But then as you're learning to discern things, it brings misery. Why does that bring misery? Because he tells us in verse number 7, 8, because you're going to die. You can't control and avoid death forever. So we struggle and we work to try to do right and follow wisdom. But in the end, guess what? You can't control impending death. It comes no matter what. Third section. So we're obedience toward the king. We're supposed to focus toward wisdom. And then verses 10 through 13, he tells us that we're supposed to fear toward God. And I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place to holy and were forgotten in this city where they had done so. This is vanity. Why? Because sins against an evil man work is not excused speedily. I'm trying to hurry, and I hate forcing myself to hurry. And then Michael says, "Don't hurry." And then I said, "I gotta hurry. I want to be done in time." And then Steve will go, "Just preach, brother."
Amen.
Come on now.
Oh, and Adam, come on now. And then the back of my mind saying, yes, but church starts in not too many minutes.
What's that? Thought we were at church right now. Thought this was church.
I'm going home.
Finish first.
Remember what Peter told you about the hecklers from the Muppet Show, the two old fellers up in the, this the whole church. But we're supposed to fear toward God. Why? He gives this very interesting illustration, verses 10 through 12 or 13, where he's saying how you look at the life of a wicked man. He may prolong his days, and then you turn around and you just look at it and you say, while the end results, I'm just reading my notes, while the end results of evil works come slowly, thus feeding the problem, it is always best to simply fear God, because the evil man does have his day. He said, basically, you see, how many times have you seen people do dumb stuff? Oh, here's an illustration. Drive. And you see a lot of really dumb people on the highway and on the back roads and on 196, on 125 and on 136 and Main Street in Yarmouth. They're everywhere. And you say, how are these people not dead the way they drive? But then it just does feeds the problem, because people just keep doing dumb things. The other day I was driving, it was icy. I was driving the work truck, because the other morning it was snowing really bad, and I'm driving around the work truck, and a guy was tailgating me. I'm driving a tank. And this dude in this itty bitty little sports car was trying to force me to go faster, and I could barely keep the tank on the road. I'm like, good luck, man. That dude's just in for a short life, but probably not. He'll probably live longer than I will. But our fear ought to be toward the Lord, no matter what we see with our eyes. And then as we're obeying, our obedience toward God, our focus toward wisdom, our fear towards the Lord, we've got to have balance toward knowing. Verses 14 through 17, he gives another illustration about things just not making sense. Because some things just don't make sense. You look at verse number 14, he says there's just men who bad things happen to, and wicked men who nothing really bad happens to them. And trying to figure out just causes a vexation of spirit, because it just doesn't make sense. Then he tells us in verse number 15 that we're just supposed to eat, drink, and be merry. Why? And just do the best we can. Why? Because there's just some things we just can't understand. And in the end, no matter how many times, no matter how hard we try, we truly cannot understand and know the things and ways of God fully. We just can't. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that I haven't been hitting the button on the slideshow so you can keep up with my notes. Here, ready? One more, there. I forgot that thing was there. So as we're looking at obedience toward the King, fearing toward God, or focusing toward wisdom, fearing toward God, balancing toward knowing, and realizing that we're just not going to be able to figure it all out, that sometimes we just have to stop and realize that if we're trying to hold on to things that we just don't understand, why does the disobedient get away with so much? Why do there so many dumb drivers that just aren't in a ditch? I remember when we had the snow and ice Friday, I was driving to work at dumb early in the morning, and people driving by me at like 70 on the highway, and I'm like doing 40. You pass that car in the ditch and people speed up. Pass that car over the guardrail, people go faster. And you just think, God, I just don't understand what's going on. And then you look in your rearview mirror and you can't even see the headlights of the car behind you, and you want to get angry. But if you get angry, then you're not going to enjoy your drive to work. You see, we're on this journey, and God's saying there's things on this, and the preacher's, not God, the preacher is writing and saying there's just some things that you have to focus on and realize that you're not going to understand everything. And the point is that we're supposed to be enjoying this journey. my ride to work in the morning, I like to listen to a couple of songs and then just me and the Lord talk while I'm following Micah to work. And it takes us a while to get to work, because if you've ever seen my wife drive, hey baby, love you. It takes us 30 minutes to do a 22-minute drive. And so I have lots of time extra to just pray and talk to the Lord and sing and have a good time. But if I'm worried about the dummy tailgating me, it's going to take away that enjoyment of the journey. If I'm cursing at the dude driving 80 miles an hour past me on the snow and ice, it's going to take away my joy of the journey. My purpose is to have obedience toward the King, to focus on wisdom, to fear God, and realize I'm just not going to understand everything. But my job and my purpose is to just keep enjoying the journey, even when things just don't make sense. But you ever just stop and say, God, I just don't understand. But if we get too focused on those things that we don't understand, it'll lead to a vexation of spirit, and it just leads to vanity, because we never truly will. I'll be done with this. You ever been through a hard time or a bad time or a struggle, and you look to heaven and you say, God, why? You ever been there? I was talking to Micah the other day, and I said, you know, when our son passed away, and I know I use that illustration a lot, something very strange happened in my heart. Is I never questioned the Lord. You could say, wow, he's spiritual, he's strong. No, I'm just mentally unstable. But I never questioned God. Whenever we went through a hard time or hard struggle or a hard event or a trial, oddly enough, and maybe it's just me, but I never really looked to God and say, why did you do this and why did you allow this? If we're not careful, we will try to hyper focus on those things that we aren't meant to hyper focus on. I was talking to the school counselor at work the other day, and I told her, I said, you know, we're not meant to have the onslaught of information that we have with just this information superhighway. Our brains and our spirits and our heart just aren't meant to take it. Our purpose is to walk with the Lord and walk in wisdom and follow the Lord and enjoy this journey that he has us on. And I think as we finish up this study of the book of Ecclesiastes, and because we're going to start just these shotgun blasts of truths and illustrations as we get toward the end of the end of the scroll, the end of the book, we're going to find that all these things that he's trying to teach us is just coming back to the central truth of enjoy the journey, walk with God. Because there's just going to be some things we try to understand, we're just not going to be able to. I hope that makes sense. I hope I was clear with my thoughts this morning. But the purpose is those four truths that he's trying to teach us here is just to understand that we're just not going to understand. We're just not going to get it, but we're to enjoy this journey he has for us and to walk in his wisdom and walk in fear of him and walk toward him and just keep on going. Father, I love you, and I thank you for the word of God and the things that you teach us and show us and help us. And in these truths that we find in the book of Ecclesiastes is just simply trying to teach us to trust you, to walk with you, to enjoy the journey, and not try and figure everything out. We love you so much. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. This to a better.
I want to share a quote with you. I was already going to share this quote with you. Trigro ILY on my bookmark, which is just a sheet of 2-ply toilet paper. Why spend money, right? It's just. Listen to this. This is by author, theologian, philosopher,
social critic Carl Trueman in his book Strange New World. Kevin touched on this twice. See if you can connect where this comment is in relation to what Kevin said this morning. From agriculture to medicine, from automobiles to computers, technology is not simply a means of doing perennial human activities with greater speed and efficiency. It changes the fundamental relationship of human beings to their environment and to each other. Neither the seasons of the year nor the geography of the land are as significant as they once were. Technology shifts the balance of power from nature toward human agency and the competition between agencies. Listen to this. Technology also reinforces the focus on the individual and upon individual satisfactions. And then he moves to use music as an example, where you used to have to gather around in a room while somebody plays music. So you all listened together to someone who was actually playing. Even at the least, even if you were listening by yourself, there was still one other person playing the music. But now technology says, and this is not wrong, technology says, I'm going to listen to music on my own, and no one has to be playing, and it's completely solo, right? Technology has given us access and an expectation for unlimited knowledge. If you don't know something, you can Google it, literally. My kids have questions. Dad, what's this? It's no longer one thing to say, well, my dad knew everything. That doesn't mean anything anymore, because either you or he are just going to Google it. Does that make sense? So what's the point? Well, Kev touched on this at the beginning and at the end of the lesson. Technology has given us the expectation that we should know the answer to everything. You say, well, it hasn't for me. Well, good. That's wisdom. But if there's a fact you don't know, or if there's something scientific you don't understand, or if there's a distance between two locations you don't, or if there's some limitation you're looking to cross, technology is here to help you. Mass transportation is technology. If I want to get from here to Syracuse, what do? I hop in my automobile and I drive. Winter doesn't stop me. Health doesn't stop me. Am I making sense? So when it comes down to the fact that at the end, you have no resource except simply to say, I don't know, that can be very frustrating for people in today's society. And it can be faith harming as well. Does that make sense? Some people have taken the step, and it can be a small one, from I don't understand why God allows this pain to a good God would not allow this pain, simply because we don't have the answer that satisfies us. Don't allow technology to become an enemy of the truth by creating an illusion in your mind that you will always have the answer for which you're looking. You won't. And that's why it's important we say, I know God does. Who is a wise man? Ultimately, the wise man is the one who says, these four things, all they do is reveal to me that I don't know. And I'm going to trust God with the answer, and I'm going to enjoy this journey despite not having all the answers all the time. And who knows? By the time you get to the destination, you might know a little bit more. But don't harbor the expectation that you're going to be as smart as God, because that's never going to happen. All right. This morning, I don't think it's a coincidence for anything. I don't believe in coincidences, but it's pretty cool that despite, at the risk of running too many pop culture references this morning, my illustration was the Lord of the Rings bridge in the Mines of Moria. That's my illustration I lean on toward the end of the sermon today. And then we're actually going to be singing a new song, and it's actually a spiritual. And when you mentioned Harriet Tubman, it made me think this is so appropriate. We're going to sing one of the songs called Give Me Jesus, that was popularized by those under great oppression and chattel slavery. And then, of course, Kevin focusing on don't look at the end, look at the journey. And that's a huge part of what the lesson's about this morning out of Acts chapter 15 is we're not just looking at salvation as the get out of hell free card. We're looking at it as something that impacts the way we live now in the journey. And so, listen, I don't know what else to say except I do believe that it's providential, that all of these things seem to work in and prepare our hearts for this morning's lesson. So I hope that you'll be attuned to it, and I hope that it'll be a blessing to you this morning. So let's break for about 5 minutes or so, about 7 minutes technically. We'll get started here in about 7 to 10 minutes. How about that? We'll get started in just a few minutes. Just a few minutes, we'll get started.